Hello, speakers and leaders. Today we're talking about how to be a better leader and communicator in a post-pandemic world, and we're going to talk about with Stacey your communication toolbox. Today I'm joined by Stacey Wiessbock, who is a global change consultant and career strategist. She works with individuals and organizations to evolve their communication, clarity, and adaptability, focused on the impact innovation, technology, and now COVID are having as it relates to people and communications. She launched JobssNow, a creative change consultant practice in 2010 in Washington, D.C. After having working with organizations like Liberty Mutual, Ellevate-Invest In Women, Boston University, Women in Tech, and as a regular panelist at MIT medical events, she brings over 2 decades of change experience besides a passion for technology. That's why I'm super excited to have Stacey on with us today. Stacey, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello, everybody. I know it's a rainy Thursday. We just heard the Sox are being delayed, and it's already turning into quite a day, right?
Yeah. Well, Stacey, let's get into it. And I'm super glad that you're here with us today. Well, how does one start, to become a better leader and communicator in this post-pandemic world? It's a big topic.
It's not complicated, really. You make the choice, right? Choice is the first step in building a practice of improvement. And choice plus practice equals success. That's what we tell our clients. It's just that simple. Make the decision to do it. The complicated part is the implementation.
So, okay, Stacey, let's say that I made the choice. Now I made the choice mentally and maybe physically. I'm tuning in to watch this video. Now, what's next?
So you have to build a roadmap, right? You need a strategy. This is why I built a practice 10 years ago. Strategy is key to success, and implementation, right? It's in the process of change, we get highly emotional. And we immediately start hitting roadblocks, sometimes the ones we create for ourselves because our fear is so great, or the ones that are being created by our external environment, right? COVID is a great example. With the roadmap, though, and with this strategy that you have, it allows you to stay on point and stay focused. You don't get in the car, right, to go somewhere without plugging in an address to the GPS. And it gives you points along the way to show you how you're going to get there. The same is true of your change in any format: job change, organizational change, even changes in our home with COVID. So the idea is to build the plan and act on that. And when you can't act on that, reach to your community.
Well, so Stacey, you are our GPS right now. It seems like. What is this plan? Can you tell us more about this plan and what it can look like?
So when we design a plan for our clients, whether it's an organization or an individual, we focus on very specific components. Our principles for our proprietary process focus on you, meaning you, the person, or you, the organization, and defining the key aspects to you, whether that's your value and your message, your goals as an organization or an individual, your community, because before you communicate with your community, you need to understand who they are and identify them, right, actively. And lastly, you need to think about tech and innovation as its influence to who you are. If you're a job seeker, you're thinking about keywords, right? What keywords define you in technology and in a search for a job? As an organization, how are people finding you through technology, right? And there's a lot of other questions that go with that, and there's a deeper dive on that. But then to move forward in your implementation and the steps within this plan, we then focus on communications and structure. Whether we're an organization or an individual, we have to have some sort of plan for how we communicate, because without communication, right, no one can understand what's happening, no one can ask questions, no one can create clarity, right? If somebody is experiencing challenge or an obstacle, they have to be able to speak up and ask for help or ask for clarity. And that's where communication comes into play in the biggest part of the process. And then lastly, managing the implementation of the change and focusing on the relationships that got you there, because this won't be the last time you change, right? This right now with COVID, this won't be the last time we all experience massive change. So how do we keep moving forward? You have to have a sustainable plan in place to do that. And this process that we designed that is all about sustainability and implementation is really where you want to put your energy, because you don't want to do something once and then have to reinvent the wheel and come back to it, right? Change happens constantly. So how are we doing that? Our toolkit is a big part of that. Aside from the roadmap, our toolkit means that we have the right tools at the right time. And asking for help is not a bad thing. We all need to do it because we all need to learn and we all need to grow.
Yeah. So Stacey, when you talk about toolkit, right? Let's say the communication toolkit. Like, what do you mean by that?
So we literally, when we're doing a session with a client or presenting for an organization, we like to show a literal toolkit with drawers, right? We have 4 drawers for our clients. The first drawer is the emotions drawer. When we are presented with a challenge, i.e. COVID, i.e. change, or something that, like, let's say your boss says something to you or a colleague that you're not in love with and you have to do something and you're struggling with it. The first drawer, the emotions drawer, is the one that you open. We all do. It's normal. We're human. We experience something, we immediately feel it. You open that drawer and you find the right tool to address that feeling. But sometimes, like with COVID, you open that drawer and you say, I can't do this. It's too much. I got to lay down, grab a bag of Doritos and Netflix binge for like 3 hours, right? Or more, whatever you do, no judgment. But the idea is that each drawer you go to should be a stop for a tool, not to lay down in. If you're laying down in it, that's a signal that you need help. You need to go to your community. You need to go to resources bigger than you. But the idea here is that we took a tool, maybe it's a tool to say, that makes me feel not great, to journal, to find a way to express that emotion, go to a therapist, vent to your friends, to your partner, whatever. You close that drawer, and the second drawer is your skills drawer. Skills and experience really matter when we process change, right? How we deal with it. Oh, I did that, something like this before. I'm comfortable with it. I can do this, right? These are things we connect to emotionally and mentally and physically. Then we move on to the next drawer, which is education, right? I'm not saying you have to have a college degree. I'm saying whatever education you've received over your lifetime adds to your toolbox and your value and your experience. So at the end of the day, you're able to really go to your own toolkit for answers. Now, it's not uncommon that you would have people saying, oh, I never got that kind of education, right? That's why it's so important to be able to go to your community when you're missing something. And that's why it's important to identify who they are in your educational tool drawer, because they are a big part of where our education comes from, right? Then the last drawer for our clients is us. Because if they don't have the understanding, the knowledge, and the resources, they can always come to us, whether it's while we're working together or when they leave or long after we're gone. Because, like I said, change doesn't happen quickly and it doesn't happen by ourselves. We really need to ensure that we have the support we need, and our toolkit allows us to do that.
I love how we have all these different. I mean, when you're saying this, I'm looking on my right. I'm like, okay, I have all these drawers right now, and it's fun that you put it this way because yeah, it is basically this way. Do you see with your clients that people do they get stuck at one, or is there one that's mostly used more in a way? I'm just, of course, it depends on the individual, but
Well, it's interesting, leaders of organizations, and organizations are their own entity, and job seekers and individuals and job changers that we work with, all different experiences, right? Everybody hits a roadblock somewhere. Our process is not cookie cutter in the sense that we provide one-on-one support when we're doing custom career strategy plans because we know they're going to hit a roadblock. The nice part is when a client comes to me, and this was pre-COVID too, I can be on the phone and just hear, they can say, this is what I'm stuck at. And I can say, okay, let's back up. Let's go to your process, right? Review the steps, tell me what you're doing. And I can always find the gap because they're not doing a part of the process. What they did was they took the process, learned it, and then said, I really don't like this communications part. I don't want to have to reach out to so many people. So I'm going to focus on the me part, or I'm going to focus on the searching online part, right? Nothing is going to be successful if you're only focusing on the things you like. You have to be uncomfortable to create change, right? We tell our clients, I'm going to make you comfortable being uncomfortable because we need to be uncomfortable to learn. It is documented, it is studied. Change only occurs in the moments where we are uncomfortable. And failure is a big part of that. We need to stop having the stigma around the idea of failing, because it is when we get stuck and we are struggling and or failing that we're learning. And that's such a good thing. I talked about it recently on a post because my intern had done some things that weren't perfect, weren't great, right? And I was getting feedback from people saying, I don't know if you guys are stuck on this or if this is happening, but XYZ, we ended up having social media with these huge links in them instead of the hyperlinks. And I was like, great, she just learned. And I was super excited. And you could see on her face, she was crushed, right? She's like, oh my God, I'm not perfect at it. And I said, you have to understand, this is a good thing. We learn in these moments. And I'm proud of mistakes because it means we're not trying to, exceed expectations in a way that's unrealistic. We're trying to set the example that you can evolve on your own terms, right, with change and be successful despite that perfect idea.
Yeah, Stacey, you talk about being uncomfortable, and that's one of the best ways to move forward and change. Do you have any examples of when people are communicating or speaking and they were uncomfortable with the way that with certain situations, and maybe how they got better at it?
Practice. So we have activities we give our clients, right, to ensure that they're practicing. One of those ways, and it's very simple, we all have it now, right? We all have a smartphone with a video camera on it, and no one loves to be on videos. I mean, I completely embrace the fact that I have to be, but I don't love it, right? So in the morning, if I have to, like today, I was getting ready to jump on this interview today. I put the video on this morning a few different times and practiced saying good morning to myself and got comfortable because it is so uncomfortable for me. And my clients experienced the same thing. We had a leader of an organization who was pre-COVID just starting to utilize video calls with his team once a week in a way that was more informative. So it was him getting on screen to just shoot a quick video in the morning to say, hey, this is the stuff I learned last night. You guys are doing a great job. And we just want you to get feedback directly from me, right? And this is a video he would tape and send out to his team, and globally they'd see it. And COVID happened, those video calls had to change. And he was wholly uncomfortable because now he had to speak about how people were experiencing something emotionally. And as a leader, that's hard for him because we say there's no crying in baseball, right? There's no emotion in business, but there is some. We have to have room for both, right? And he had to start talking to his employees to say, look, I'm struggling, you're struggling. Nobody's alone here. Don't burn the candle at both ends. We value you. This has to be sustainable. We have to figure this out together, right? And for him now, right, he does it like he sips a cup of coffee. But in the beginning, we worked really hard to get him to the point where he could do it. And it started, he had post-its on the computer screen behind him, and he had a separate screen to shoot, and he was using scripts and post-it notes and reshooting it 3, 4, 5 times. But the idea is the more you do it, the more comfortable you get and the better you get at it. It doesn't matter what it is. No Olympian went out one day and said, I'm going to win a gold medal. They said, I'm going to start here and I'm going to practice until I can win. And even then, they still continue to practice.
Yeah, but what if someone's listening to this and they want to change? I'm not sure if you ever got this, but they don't know what their next steps are to change. It's like, I want to do something, but I just don't know where to go because they just probably don't know. What
Right.
would you say to someone
Change
like
is
that? Like,
it's complicated, right? There's all this emotion tied into it. you really have to decide what your one thing is you want to change, right? Because change doesn't happen. You can't have 5 different goals. You have one goal. Now you can have 5 goals, different goals with 5 different plans, and then try to connect the plans, right? That happens. And we often get brought in to do that. But at the end of the day, we need to identify what your one plan is. And you have to remember goals have steps, right? There's a long-term goal, there's a short-term goal, there's an immediate goal. And then when you break it down even further, like when we're working with individuals, we not only have daily goals on top of that. So each week we look at a job seekers or a job changer situation or a leader for a project we're working on, right? And we say, what are your daily goals? What are the weekly goals? And then what are the short-term goals, meaning what do we want to accomplish in the next 3 months, next 6 months? And then what's the long-term goal? We actually say long-term goal, meaning a year or 2 years. But then we know once we achieve this goal, then we can say, okay, now what's our 3-year, 5-year goal? Because it's only after that that we tend to take that approach because we find it's more sustainable and manageable for our clients.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. And, all these goals are great to have, as you're talking about it. I'm like, oh man, I need to look at my goals and how I need to upgrade and keep on changing. Yeah.
Well, the thing to remember is your goals will change and they should, right? Nothing is built in stone. And if COVID has shown us anything, it's that things will just shift on a dime. So you have to be really willing to say, this is my goal and I'm working toward it. What happens if something comes along to derail it? How do you evolve despite that challenge? That's key, right, to successful change, is being able to say, can I still achieve this? And if I can, what does it look like in a different way? I love having people who I don't agree with look at my own goals for things professionally, because they're critical in a good way, right? They show me something I'm not going to see about what I'm trying to build. And it's good for us to get out of our head, right? Fear and change often create a dialogue that we only keep in our head. And that's really detrimental to our success because we need other people in the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Stacey, what else? And this is all good. What else do you want to go into to help people become better leaders and communicators, or go deeper into some of the things that you've been talking about?
I think the greatest thing we could talk about, is this need to ask for help and this idea around failing. I am very lucky to be in a conversation with fail.org, which is out of MIT. They have always been creating these programs of podcasts and it used to be in-person sessions where you could go and hear stories about people and their struggles and their failures and how they overcame and succeeded through these changes. And I think there's such a stigma around it, right? There's such a negative idea that we can't talk about our failure or talk about why we're not succeeding. And that's so not helpful in change, because it's those moments that we fail that we realize, oh, I really didn't, I don't think I actually wanted that, and here I am failing at it. And it makes you really question, how much are you putting into something? And with COVID specifically, right, it's created this really tough um, experience for people in change because it was forced. And when change is not your choice, it's the hardest to embrace. Think about all the organizations you've been in. Think about as a leader, what people have experienced when you said, I'm going to create change for you, right? And not because they wanted it, but because you needed it, because you're an organization, right? In business, we change or we die. And that is really tough. And our process was designed so that when that occurs, we get everybody on the same page, even if they don't want it in the beginning. We ensure that when we're moving forward, people are working together. And that's the goal, is working together, whether you're an individual or a leader of an organization. If you are working together, more is possible.
And Stacey, as people are probably loving what you're saying, if they want to follow you or connect with you further, where's the best place to go?
Really, we just make it pretty easy. We're on LinkedIn. we have a company page, JobssNow. I encourage people, don't click and collect me. Don't go, oh, I loved what you said, I want to connect with you. I don't do that. My email address is right on my LinkedIn page. Email me. I want to build a relationship with you and understand who you are before I connect with you. But if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can follow us on Twitter. We mostly post on LinkedIn just because we focus on the landscape of business, right? So employment and change for organizations, and all of the people that live in that space are typically on LinkedIn. So that's usually where we are.
Yeah, that's great, Stacey. Of course, this is just the beginning of this conversation. Stacey, usually at the end of our interviews, right? We don't have time for everything today, but usually as we wrap up, I usually like to ask my guests, what's your 1 minute message for today? So, Stacey, what would be your 1 minute message for our audience today?
Take care of yourself. Change is very complicated, and we're in massive, unprecedented amounts of change. And if you don't take care of yourself, then nothing else can succeed. So whether you're an individual or a leader or a job seeker, one of the many unemployed, whether you're an entrepreneur starting a new business, if you take care of yourself first, everything else will follow. And that's the priority to succeed, is take care of you.
So after watching this, ladies and gentlemen, go and take care of yourself. Whatever it is you have to do, go meditate. That's what I'm going to do after this interview. Go meditate. Stacey, how do you take care of yourself?
We have an enormous property. I put my hands in the dirt pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I love to just be outside, and we live near the water, so I can take a bike ride over there, just get outside really, and give myself space when I need it. Say to my people around me, I love you, but go. I need to be able to not hear anything for 3 hours, right? So those are pretty much my rules. But again, it's I'm the one who has to implement them. I'm the one that has to say it's my time. So I get, it's not easy for people right now, but it's really the best thing. There's a reason when you get on a plane, they say, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yes. Stacey, I want to say thank you once again for joining us today, and thank you for all of the great tips, experience, and wisdom that you're sharing. Any last words before we go, Stacey?
I think that if anybody does anything aside from taking care of themselves, make sure you're following Kip Pang, because I got to tell you, the most amazing ideas in my work come from listening to this guy.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Well, everyone, for watching, go and email Stacey. Connect with her. Not just connecting, click and connect, but shoot her an email if you want to learn more about Stacey and her work. Stacey, once again, thank you for being on with us.